"I've made a terrible mistake." The words caught in Natalie's throat as she stared into the eyes of Elliot Harrington, the man she'd just spent 20 minutes criticizing company policies to. He rose from their table and walked toward the stage. The room erupted in applause while her world collapsed into a singularity of horror. She hadn't been sharing candid opinions with a random colleague. She'd been unknowingly trashing marketing strategies to the CEO of the entire corporation. The microphone crackled as he adjusted it, his eyes scanning the crowd until they locked with hers for one excruciating moment. What happened next would either destroy her career or transform it forever. Before we dive into Natalie's story of mistaken identity and corporate intrigue, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more of these captivating real-life dramas that might just change how you see your own workplace relationships. Some people fill a room with their presence. Natalie Winters emptied it with her absence. Not physically, of course. Her slender frame, chestnut hair, and hazel eyes were pleasant enough, but she had perfected the art of psychological invisibility. In meetings at Green Horizons, Seattle's fastest-growing health food corporation, she would sit slightly behind someone broader, speak only when directly addressed, and escape before the mandatory small talk began. This wasn't due to incompetence. At 26, Natalie had already proven herself as one of the company's most meticulous marketing analysts. Her presentations were flawless, her reports impeccable. She simply delivered them with her eyes fixed on her notes rather than making the eye contact her supervisor constantly encouraged. "How can you build a career hiding in the shadows, Natalie?" Marcus would say, not unkindly. "Your ideas deserve a spotlight." But spotlights made Natalie's skin itch. She'd learned early that drawing attention often invited criticism, and criticism felt like burning alive, so she'd constructed careful walls around herself, polite but distant, competent but forgettable. This strategy had carried her through 4 years at Green Horizons, where she'd received modest raises, adequate performance reviews, and exactly 0 promotions. Her apartment reflected her professional persona, tasteful but impersonal, as if she were merely visiting her own life. The only exception was her small balcony garden, where herbs, flowers, and miniature vegetables thrived under her dedicated care. Plants, unlike people, responded to authenticity without judgment. On a rainy Tuesday morning in October, Natalie arrived at her desk to find an elegant cream envelope bearing the Green Horizons Emerald logo. She opened it with mounting dread. Inside was an invitation to the company's annual gala, 3 hours of forced socialization in formal wear. Usually she managed to escape these events with plausible excuses about prior commitments or sudden migraines. This year, however, the word mandatory was stamped across the top in bold green letters. "You can't skip this one," Marcus confirmed when she approached him hesitantly. The executive team specifically requested full attendance. They're announcing something big, apparently. His expression softened, seeing her discomfort. "Look, just show up. Stay for the announcement. Shake a few hands and you can leave. But you need to be there. It's time people upstairs know who you are." That was precisely what Natalie feared. The next 10 days passed in a blur of anxiety. She agonized over appropriate attire, finally settling on a modest emerald dress that wouldn't draw attention but wouldn't mark her as completely oblivious to fashion either. She researched conversation starters and rehearsed casual remarks about the company's recent sustainability initiatives. She even practiced introducing herself in the mirror, working to eliminate the questioning uptilt that always made her statements sound like she was seeking permission to exist. The night of the gala arrived with an unseasonably clear sky, as if the usual Seattle clouds had stepped aside specifically to deprive Natalie of her preferred metaphor. The venue, the Grand Ellison Hotel, loomed before her like a final exam. Music and laughter drifted from its gilded entrance. Colleagues in elegant attire streamed inside, many already loosened by pre-event drinks. Natalie checked her watch. 7:30 p.m. The invitation had specified 7 hazards. She'd purposely arrived late to avoid the initial awkward milling around. Taking a deep breath, she smoothed her dress, touched the simple pendant at her throat for reassurance, and forced herself forward. Inside the hotel ballroom was a marvel of understated luxury. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over cream tablecloths and emerald accents, the company colors meticulously represented. A string quartet played something classical in one corner, while waiters circulated with champagne flutes. Natalie immediately accepted one, then another, grateful for something to do with her hands and the liquid courage it promised. Most tables were already full, colleagues clustered in familiar social circles. Natalie scanned the room desperately for any friendly face, but found none. Just as panic began to rise in her chest, she noticed a nearly empty table near the floor-to-ceiling windows. Only one person sat there, a man in an impeccably tailored suit who seemed absorbed in the view of the Seattle skyline. Relief washed over her. A table with just one stranger was infinitely preferable to joining a group of semi-acquaintances mid-conversation. She approached cautiously, clutching her small purse like a talisman. "Excuse me," she murmured, "is this seat taken?" The man turned, revealing a face that was handsome in an unconventional way, intelligent eyes, expression lines that suggested he smiled often, hair prematurely silver at the temples. No name tag, she noticed. Perhaps another employee who disliked these functions as much as she did. "Not at all," he replied, standing slightly in a gesture of old-fashioned courtesy. "Please join me." The man's posture relaxed as Natalie sat down, as if he too had been hoping for a quiet companion rather than solitude. The clamor of the gala seemed to fade slightly at this table tucked away by the windows, creating an unexpected pocket of calm amidst the corporate performance art playing out across the ballroom. "Not a fan of these events either?" he asked, his voice carrying a warmth that immediately put Natalie more at ease than she'd felt all evening. She hesitated, years of corporate caution warring with the unusual sense of comfort his presence inspired. "Is it that obvious?" The words escaped before her internal censor could catch them. Instead of the polite corporate laugh she expected, he gave a genuine chuckle. "Let's just say you had the same expression I wear at these things, like you're calculating the exact minimum time required before making a graceful exit." Something about his candor, coupled with the two champagnes warming her veins, loosened the tight knot of anxiety that had been lodged in Natalie's chest all evening. "My escape plan involves a fake phone call at 9:30, she admitted with a small smile. "Terrible news that absolutely requires my immediate attention." "Impressive commitment," he nodded approvingly. "I usually just slip out the service entrance. The kitchen staff are far less judgmental than the networking crowd." His comfortable unpretentiousness was so unexpected that Natalie found herself relaxing further. He didn't seem interested in discussing quarterly projections or organizational restructuring, the usual mind-numbing topics that dominated these gatherings. "I'm Elliot, by the way," he said, offering his hand. "Natalie Winters." She accepted the handshake, noting his firm but not domineering grip. "Marketing department, right?" he asked, surprising her. "How did you know?" In 4 years, she'd rarely been recognized even by people on her own floor. He gestured vaguely. "I make it my business to know who's who." Before she could question this further, he smoothly changed the subject. "How long have you been with Green Horizons?" "It'll be 4 years next month," she replied. "And how has that experience been for you?" Something in his tone suggested genuine interest rather than perfunctory small talk. Perhaps it was this perception of authenticity, or maybe the third champagne that a passing waiter had somehow materialized in her hand, but Natalie found herself answering honestly, professionally or existentially. His eyebrows rose, slightly interest kindling in his expression. "Both, if you're willing to share." "Professionally adequate." She traced the stem of her glass thoughtfully. "The work is precise, predictable. I create reports that disappear into the corporate void. I attend meetings where everyone agrees with whoever spoke first. She stopped herself, suddenly aware she was veering dangerously close to company criticism with a stranger. "And existentially," he prompted gently. Natalie took another sip. Liquid courage for increasingly dangerous honesty. Existentially, I sometimes wonder if I'm actually making any difference at all. We sell organic food products which should feel meaningful, but most of our marketing strategies involve manufactured authenticity, pretty pictures of farms we don't actually source from testimonials from real people who are actually paid actors. The moment the words left her mouth, professional alarm bells clanged in her head. "I shouldn't have said that," she added hastily. Instead of looking scandalized, Elliot leaned forward with increased interest. "No, you absolutely should have. Authenticity is rare in this industry, in any industry. Most people spend these events carefully curating every word to advance their agenda. It's refreshing to hear someone speak their actual thoughts." His validation eased her momentary panic. "What about you?" she ventured. "How long have you been with the company?" "Since the beginning," he replied with a cryptic smile. "But enough about corporate hierarchies. Tell me, if you could change anything about how Green Horizons operates, what would it be?" The question was so unexpected, so contrary to the careful professional script that Natalie found herself answering before her usual filters could engage. She spoke about how the company could embrace actual transparency instead of just claiming it in press releases, how they could feature real customers and their stories instead of polished fictions, how their considerable resources could educate consumers about sustainable food choices without resorting to fear tactics or greenwashing. "The frustrating thing is, we wouldn't even need to lie," she said, animation creeping into her usually measured voice. "Our products actually are ethically sourced. Our supply chain actually is more sustainable than competitors. But instead of showcasing that authentic story, we follow the same manipulative marketing playbook everyone else uses. It's like we don't trust that the truth is enough." Throughout her unexpected monologue, Elliot listened with an intensity Natalie rarely encountered, as if her words actually mattered. Not once did he glance at his phone or scan the room for more important conversation partners. In the carefully choreographed dance of corporate networking, his undivided attention felt almost subversive. "You know," he said when she finally paused, "most executives surround themselves with people who tell them what they want to hear. They end up living in a bubble of affirmation until reality eventually bursts, it usually catastrophically." Before Natalie could respond, the room's lighting shifted subtly. A spotlight illuminated the stage at the front of the ballroom as the company's signature emerald logo appeared on giant screens. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC's amplified voice cut through the ambient chatter, "please welcome to the stage the visionary behind Green Horizons' remarkable growth, our founder and CEO, Elliot Harrington." The world seemed to tilt beneath Natalie as her dinner companion, the man she'd just spent 20 minutes candidly criticizing company practices, rose from his chair with a small apologetic smile. "Duty calls," he said quietly. "Thank you for the most honest conversation I've had in months." As he walked toward the stage amidst enthusiastic applause, Natalie sat frozen in her chair, the full horror of the situation washing over her in waves. She hadn't been speaking to some random middle manager or fellow corporate drone. She'd been freely criticizing marketing strategies to the literal founder and CEO of the entire corporation, the man who could fire her with a single email. Through the roaring in her ears, she barely heard Elliot announce the company's expansion into European markets. She didn't register the unveiling of the new product line. Her mind was too busy cycling through increasingly desperate career alternatives now that she'd effectively sabotaged herself at Green Horizons' barista Uber driver, moving back to her parents' house in Michigan. When the speech concluded to thunderous applause, Natalie seized her moment of invisibility amidst the commotion. She slipped out of the ballroom without a backward glance, certain that her career at Green Horizons had just met its inglorious end. Music. Morning arrived with the particular cruelty reserved for days after professional humiliation. Natalie's alarm blared at 6:00 a.m., mocking her with its assumption that she still had a job. She briefly considered calling in sick, her first in 4 years, but quickly dismissed the idea. Delaying the inevitable wouldn't change the outcome. The Green Horizons headquarters had never looked more intimidating. Inside, she kept her eyes downcast, convinced everyone could somehow sense her catastrophic faux pas from the previous night. To her surprise, her key card still worked. Her desk remained untouched. No security guards waited to escort her out, just the usual Monday morning symphony of keyboard clicks and muted conversations. Perhaps Natalie reasoned Elliot Harrington met so many people at these events that their conversation had already faded from his memory. She would focus on work while she still had some to do. She had just opened her email when a calendar notification appeared. 10:30 a.m. Strategic Marketing Initiative, Executive Conference Room. E. Harrington, CEO. Natalie stared at the screen in disbelief. An individual meeting with the CEO less than 24 hours after she'd criticized his company's entire marketing approach? Her stomach clenched as she realized he probably wanted to fire her personally. At 10:25, she walked toward the executive floor with the dignified resignation of one approaching the gallows. As she gave her name to the receptionist, another voice cut through the hushed atmosphere. "Well, well." Malene Carter approached with the precise click of designer heels against marble. Natalie Winters gracing the executive floor. To what do we owe this unusual pleasure? At 38, Malene was everything Natalie was not confident to the point of aggression, politically savvy, and relentlessly ambitious. As marketing director, she had a reputation for claiming credit for subordinates' successful ideas while ensuring failures landed on others' shoulders. "Mr. Harrington requested a meeting," Natalie replied, trying to keep her voice neutral. Something sharp flickered in Malene's perfectly made-up eyes. "Did he? Now, I wasn't aware you two were acquainted." Before Natalie could respond, the receptionist interrupted. "Miss Winters, Mr. Harrington will see you now." Malene's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Best of luck, Natalie. Elliot can be demanding." The familiarity with which she used the CEO's first name was clearly intended to establish hierarchy. Elliot's office surprised her with its personal touches, worn paperbacks, a small herb garden, and photographs of community projects, nothing like the sterile minimalism she'd expected. "Mr. Harrington, about last night, I want to apologize for my inappropriate comments," she began nervously. He raised a hand, stopping her. "First, please call me Elliot. And second, you have absolutely nothing to apologize for. Your comments are exactly why I wanted to meet with you today." Natalie blinked in confusion as he continued. "Your critique was the most honest feedback I've received in years. Everyone else is too concerned with telling me what they think I want to hear." He pushed a folder across the desk titled Authentic Horizons Initiative. "I'm launching this initiative to realign our marketing with our actual values, and I want you to lead it." "Lead it? But I'm just an analyst. Surely Malene or someone with more experience in perpetuating the problem isn't what we need." Elliot interrupted gently. "We need fresh perspective from someone who sees clearly what we've become versus what we should be. That's you." "I'll need to think about it," she said, finally surprising herself. Rather than appearing disappointed, Elliot seemed pleased. "Good. Don't answer from fear. Think about whether this aligns with your values." As Natalie left, she nearly collided with Malene, who was clearly lingering nearby. "So?" Malene's tone was casual, but her eyes were sharp. "Still employed, I see." "Actually, I've been offered a project leadership role," Natalie replied. Malene's carefully composed expression flickered. "How surprising. What project would that be?" "The Authentic Horizons Initiative." "That's not possible," Malene replied, voice hardening. "I've been developing a proposal for that initiative for months." "Well, it seems Mr. Harrington had other ideas." The words came out more confidently than Natalie felt. Malene's smile tightened. "You know, Natalie, corporate favor is fleeting. Today's golden child is tomorrow's cautionary tale, especially for those who overestimate their importance." Over the following weeks, what began as Malene's cold professionalism devolved into something far more insidious. Meeting rooms Natalie booked would be suddenly double booked. Emails would mysteriously disappear. Team members would be reassigned to urgent tasks before crucial development sessions. Rumors spread that Natalie had manipulated her way into Elliot's good graces, that their chance meeting had been orchestrated, that she was using feminine wiles rather than professional competence. "Is it true you researched which table he'd be sitting at?" a colleague asked during lunch one day. "I heard you two were seen leaving together," another whispered in the elevator. Each insinuation stung, but Elliot's continued support gave Natalie the courage to persevere. The Authentic Horizons initiative gained momentum despite the obstacles. The marketing concepts featuring real employees, actual farms, and genuine customer stories tested higher than any campaign in the company's history. Then came the final presentation day to the entire executive team and board. Natalie had prepared meticulously. This was her moment to step fully into the light, to embrace visibility on her own terms. She was midway through her presentation when Malene stood holding up a hand to interrupt. "Before we proceed further, I feel obligated to bring something concerning to everyone's attention." Her voice carried the practiced gravity of someone performing regret. "It pains me to do this, but ethical integrity must come before personal relationships." She tapped her tablet and Natalie's voice filled the room. I recognized him immediately, the CEO. I figured if I played innocent and said the right things, he'd notice me. It worked perfectly. Horrified silence engulfed the room. All eyes turned to Natalie, frozen at the podium, then to Elliot, whose expression had hardened into something unreadable. "Ms. Winters," he said formally, "my office now. Everyone else will reconvene in 30 minutes. As Natalie followed him out, the weight of judgmental stares pressed against her back. Malene's triumphant smile was the last thing she saw before the door closed behind her. The walk from the conference room to Elliot's office felt like a death march. Each step reminded Natalie that 3 months of dedicated work and the first real risk she'd ever taken had been destroyed by a few seconds of manipulated audio. In his office, Elliot stood by the windows overlooking Seattle's skyline, his reflection revealing an expression more complex than anger. "I never said those things." Natalie began, her voice steadier than expected. "Not like that. Not in that order. Not with that meaning." "I know," Elliot replied without turning. His immediate response caught her off guard. "You believe me?" Now he turned, his face serious but not condemning. "The woman who spoke honestly to me at that gala, who took time to consider a promotion rather than grabbing it immediately, who's navigated months of sabotage with grace, that woman isn't a manipulator." The audio was clearly edited. Relief washed through Natalie with such force that she gripped a chair for support. "But how do we prove it? It's my word against Malene's, and she has years of connections that I don't." Elliot's mouth curved into a small, determined smile. "This building has security protocols most employees aren't aware of. Every meeting room, every hallway conversation, all recorded for security purposes. The board implemented it after an industrial espionage incident years ago, so we can access the original recordings that Malene spliced together." "I've already requested them," Elliot confirmed. "But there's protocol. The security team needs 24 hours to retrieve and process them. That's why I suspended the meeting rather than canceling it. But in the meantime, everyone thinks I'm exactly what Malene portrayed me as." "Yes," Elliot acknowledged with regret. "And that's why I need to ask something difficult of you. Something that goes against every instinct you have." "What's that?" "I need you to go home, hold your head high, and trust me to handle this." His expression softened. "I know visibility has always been challenging for you. Being seen is difficult enough. Being seen wrongly is excruciating. But sometimes the only way through fire is forward." Though every instinct screamed to hide something deeper, recognized the wisdom in his words. "Okay," she agreed quietly. "I trust you." The next 24 hours unfolded like a waking nightmare. Natalie's phone remained silent. No messages of support, no colleagues asking for her side. When she returned to the office, colleagues averted their eyes as she passed. Some whispered behind raised hands. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the conference room door to find the same audience as yesterday, but with one addition: Henry Chin, head of corporate security, standing beside a laptop. Elliot addressed the room with quiet authority. Before we continue with Ms. Winters' presentation, there's an important matter to address. Mr. Chin, if you would. Henry tapped a few keys. I've retrieved all audio recordings from conversations between Ms. Winters and Ms. Carter. What you're about to hear reveals how yesterday's recording was created. The speakers came to life with Natalie's voice, but not as anyone had heard it yesterday. This time they heard fragments from entirely different contexts, discussing a client mentioning the CEO in a project update, talking about negotiation strategy, reviewing customer testimonials, and commenting on a successful product launch. Henry played each original recording in full, allowing everyone to hear how drastically Millionaire had manipulated reality. With each revelation, Natalie could see the doubt in her colleagues' eyes, transforming into indignation on her behalf. Security logs also show Miss Carter accessing audio editing software during unusual hours. Henry continued. The metadata confirms it was created on her device. Elliot thanked Henry before addressing the room gravely. What we witnessed yesterday was a profound violation of our core values. Miss Carter, please report to HR immediately. Your company access is suspended pending review. As Millionaire departed, shoulders rigid with humiliation, no one made eye contact with her. When the door closed, Elliot turned to Natalie with genuine remorse. On behalf of Green Horizons, I offer our sincere apology. The floor is yours again if you feel ready. Standing to reclaim the podium, Natalie felt a curious transformation. The fear of visibility that had defined her professional existence was being replaced by something new, not brash confidence, but a quiet assurance in her own worth. Before I continue, she said, her voice clear, I'd like to address something important. What happened yesterday wasn't just about one person's ambition gone too far. It reflected aspects of our culture that sometimes values appearance over substance, that rewards those who promote themselves the loudest, rather than those who contribute most meaningfully. The Authentic Horizons initiative isn't just about how we present ourselves to customers, it's about who we truly are as a company. It begins with how we treat each other. As she resumed her presentation, Natalie noticed the executives leaning forward with genuine interest. Her team members watched with undisguised pride, and Elliot wore an expression that mingled professional appreciation with something warmer. By the time she concluded, the board had unanimously approved the initiative with an expanded budget. Colleagues who had avoided her earlier now approached with congratulations. Through public humiliation and vindication, Natalie had discovered an unexpected freedom in being fully seen when what was seen was genuine. As the room emptied, Elliot approached. You could have simply continued your presentation. You didn't need to address the elephant in the room. Yes, I did, Natalie replied with newfound certainty. Otherwise, nothing really changes. He studied her with admiration. Dinner tomorrow, then, to celebrate properly. No name tags, no corporate politics, just two people who appreciate honesty in a world that rarely rewards it. For the first time in her professional life, Natalie didn't overthink or search for the safest response. She simply answered with the truth. I'd like that very much. 3 months later, Green Horizons unveiled its Authentically Us campaign to industry acclaim and unprecedented consumer response. Sales rose by 23% in the first quarter. The company's authenticity score, a metric measuring consumer trust, reached its highest point in corporate history. What had begun as one honest conversation at a gala had transformed into a company-wide revolution in transparency and genuine communication. For Natalie, the transformation was equally profound. The woman who once strategized routes to avoid colleague interaction now led cross-departmental meetings with quiet confidence. Her office, promoted from cubicle following her appointment as Director of Authentic Marketing, featured large windows rather than the corner spot she would once have preferred for its seclusion. Most significantly, she'd discovered that visibility didn't have to mean vulnerability. Being seen, truly seen by people who valued her contributions, had proven far less terrifying than hiding in plain sight. The corporate culture, too, had begun a subtle shift away from rewarding the loudest voices toward recognizing the value of thoughtful, authentic contribution. On a clear Seattle evening, as sunset painted the sky in watercolor hues of pink and gold, Natalie found herself once again sharing a table with Elliot. This time at a small restaurant overlooking Elliott Bay rather than a crowded corporate gala. Their professional relationship had gradually evolved into something more personal, built on mutual respect and the rare foundation of having seen each other's true character under pressure. "I've been thinking about something you said that first night," Elliot remarked as they finished their meal. "About feeling invisible in your own company. Do you still feel that way?" Natalie considered the question thoughtfully. "No, but not because I'm more visible now in terms of position or recognition. It's because I finally stopped hiding. There's a difference between being unseen and hiding yourself." Elliot nodded understanding in his eyes. Most people spend their lives performing versions of themselves they think others want to see. Few have the courage to simply be. "Speaking of courage," Natalie said with a small smile, "I hear Maline's doing well in the Alaska office." "She is, surprisingly. Sometimes people need to start over in a place where their reputation doesn't precede them. She's actually implemented some impressive community outreach programs there." As they walked along the waterfront after dinner, the city lights reflecting on the dark water, Natalie realized that her greatest professional achievement wasn't the successful campaign or her promotion. It was discovering that her most valuable asset had never been her ability to blend in, but rather her capacity for honest connection in a world starved for authenticity. Sometimes the quiet voices carried the most important messages if only given the chance to be heard. That's the end of Natalie and Elliot's story, where authenticity triumphed over deception and a shy woman found her voice in the most unexpected way. If this tale of workplace drama and personal growth resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need a reminder that being genuine is always worth the risk. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that explore the complexities of modern life. Your support helps us continue bringing these meaningful narratives to life. Thank you for listening. Remember, sometimes the quietest voices carry the most important messages if only given the chance to be heard.